Well, welcome everyone to the Aesthetic Blueprint podcast produced by Symplast, where we discuss the intersection of technology, strategy, and business growth in medical aesthetics. I'm your host, Facundo Formica, CEO of Symplast. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Chris Suchánek, Chief Strategy Officer at Firmedia. Chris, welcome. Before we dive in, can you give our listeners a little history about you? And you have been in this industry for quite a while, and all the accomplishments that you have achieved, including Firmedia.
First off, thanks for having me on the show, Facundo. I always appreciate getting to connect with you, whether it's digitally or in person. Over the last couple of years, I've seen you a lot across the country, so it's been a pleasure to get to know you, and I'm really excited about being on the show. A little bit about me. I got my feet wet in marketing in the entertainment business in the 90s. I was in the music business for that decade. I had an investment from a couple different companies. I got some of my funding from EMI Music Publishing and then some other outside sources to run a, it became eventually an independent record company, but it started out as sort of a talent development agency. These organizations gave me money to find bands, develop them, record them. And at the end of the day, we ended up putting out 35 albums in 3 countries. And I got to work on a team that won a Grammy for one of those artists. And that was the real highlight of that. I walked away from that career because I just got too tired to keep up. And, went to college. After college, I got an opportunity to work for some gentlemen in the aesthetic industry who had purchased some pretty high-powered domain names back then, when domain names were more important than they are today. And one of them happened to put me in front of 700 plastic surgeons nationally. So once I got in front of 700 plastic surgeons nationally, I started learning about niches and geos and all kinds of stuff that taught me about ways to market plastic surgeons and do it somewhat with similar understandings to how you would market maybe an artist in regional artists before you took them nationally. So there's a little bit of leveraging that going on. So
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
was
good analogy.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the way that I started Firmedia at my kitchen table with what I say is a business card and a phone line and a couple $1,000s was much like the way that I started the talent development agency that I had in the music business, almost identical. And I'd love to tell you that story sometime, but it's pretty long.
Yeah.
So then outside of that, I'm a little bit of a serial entrepreneur. I own a nonprofit that functions here in the United States and a little bit in Mexico, where we address food insecurity and provide volunteer opportunities. So that's really exciting to do. So yeah, and I got my hands on a bunch of other stuff that's probably not relevant to this.
Well, thank you for sharing. I mean, like you said, we've been in the circuit for quite a while, and we see each other at different conferences, and it's always exciting to catch up with you and your insights in the industry. This is the first time I hear that one between local artists and plastic surgeons, and I like it. I think that there's a lot right there. So, I'm working with aesthetic practices all across the country. What are the biggest shifts that you're seeing now in their marketing approach, especially in the last couple of years? I think there was a pretty tectonic shift.
Yeah, there's quite a few happening all at the same time. There's the shift that's happening from sort of digital marketing back towards somewhat traditional, which I'll probably talk about that a little bit later. Sort of mixed media marketing is becoming a thing again. I look forward to talking about that a little bit. Also, I think one of the big shifts is that when I first started this, I would go to a trade show and there were literally 2 marketing agencies on the trade show floor. And one agency had half the clients and another agency had the other half, and they would move back and forth when they didn't like what was happening. And we know there's a lot of options on the trade show floor. And I think there's a divide taking place where it used to be you were competing in, say, I don't know, Austin, Dallas, Miami, wherever. The top 5 major markets is a good place to start, right? So, and you were competing in those markets, and yeah, there were a lot of people that you were competing against, but most places it was 10 to 20 plastic surgeons that you were competing against, and some of them weren't doing marketing, and the ones that were could rank in the search engines. There are outliers to what I just said. I mean, Beverly Hills has always had quite a few, plastic surgeons in a very small space. But just having a website, so this is very common, right? aesthetic practice calls us, whether it's a med spa or a plastic surgery practice, and they want a website, they want to show up they want leads, they want to show up in the search engines, and some of them don't really want to even participate. Now that's changing with a sort of a new generation of people that are actively involved in social media and things like that. But at the end of the day, I'm realizing that Firm Media is making a shift to being a brand first agency. And the reason we're making the shift to becoming a brand first agency is because you can't just write about breast augmentation or tummy tuck and liposuction, put it on a website and get that website to rank in the search engines, right? Your brand has to be clear. Your value propositions have to be clear when people are reading your website. There has to be clear differentiators between you and the other 4 or 5 people that they landed on their website. Because when they fill out a contact form on your website, they didn't just fill out one. They probably filled out 3 or 4 within the same half hour, right? So when somebody's landing on your website, this is the way I like to put it. Marketing gets you the first date. Branding gets you a shot at getting married.
Very good. I love that you're bringing up branding. And I think that I read into that too. And I'm weaving some of our concepts. That is, that patient journey is so critical, and a modern patient journey, and that experience that you deliver, because an emotional decision at the end of the day. Aesthetics being elective medicine, it is a very emotional decision, and you have to connect with the practice. Of course, you have to connect with the surgeon, but as soon as in that first date, the surgeon might not be the first impression.
Sure.
And so we'll definitely dig into that. Very, very interested. I like that way of looking at it, that marketing gets you that first date.
Sure.
We'll explore on that. And for those first dates, can you tell me, let's start kind of strong. Can you tell me some of the things that you believe that may be overhyped, some strategies that are overhyped, and therefore they're delivering today?
I think that we're starting to enter a phase where social media and the way we're using social media might be seeing a shift, right? I mean, with med spas, you're seeing nurse injectors dancing and, all of that stuff. And I think we're entering a phase. There's a new generation of consumer coming into the marketplace. This is a emotionally intelligent group of people who are tired of being sold to. You can't just have a brand that you talk about. You have to be that brand and believe in that brand. So I think that's really important. I've met people recently who consider themselves social media famous and still broke. So I'm not saying social media doesn't work. I leverage social media very aggressively, but I have a realistic expectation of what that's going to bring me, right? Social media doesn't usually bring me clients so much as it helps me to network with the industry. It gets me speaking opportunities, and it positions me as an expert, right? Because of what I've been able to do on social media, I've been asked to write for Forbes magazine and a couple other. I won an award a couple days ago for thought leadership in Brains magazine, which was pretty exciting. But those opportunities all usually come from how I'm perceived on social media. But very few people call me and say, "Hey, I want you to be my marketing consultant, and I want you to build me a website." That usually comes just from the people I'm connecting with on social media, introducing me to other people.
Absolutely. And that translates the same way to physicians and surgeons, right? Where they're going to get a lot of exposure with their patients as they become those experts, or portray, not only portray, but they have a stage via social media to present their expertise. So I can see how it relates on how, yourself, companies like you, and of course Symplast as well, how we become connected into the network. But it's the same thing how physicians become connected with patients. And sometimes, yes, it's showing that personal or personality and maybe a TikTok dance or whatnot, but that without clinical expertise, without promoting the medical background and knowledge, certainly it could fall very shallow.
Sure. I'm not sure if you're aware, but just a few days ago, there was that, I think it's John Oliver expose on the med spa space, right? I think there's a heavy emphasis on whether people are qualified or not. And I think to some degree or another, people are going to be less interested in my nurse injector or my laser tech dancing than they are with, are you qualified to be doing what you're doing for me? And I think we're going to see that shift. What do you
Absolutely.
offer? What products are you using on me? Are you qualified to provide this service to me? Is there true medical oversight in the practice? Those kind of things.
Yeah, certainly. For that show to pick it up, clearly it is something that is relevant in society, and and that should definitely influence how the industry present themselves to the patients. Really good point. One of the things that we see at Symplast is that they're overwhelmed with having to deal with patients, but when they're behaving as clients, right, as the customer side, meaning a prospective patient, and you were talking about first dates. I think that the first date you could even consider that is even before that appointment. So, like you said, the patient may be filling out 4, 5, 10 different forms within 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, creating a connection with that patient very, very quickly, it is critical for those practices to then be successful at converting all those, calls for the first date into actual first date or consultations. So I was wondering, what's your, um, what are your insights around from CRMs and different technologies that are helping practitioners or practices to give that first great impression and then accelerate the connection, the personal connection. Because certainly we are seeing things like AI agents and things like that that are fantastic to field some questions, but of course it's just a tool to then get to a real connection, and a real connection should not be established with an AI agent.
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, we're back to branding, right? We're back to the patient experience. I work with a lot of practices where I ask them about their patient experience, what they think the patient is feeling and thinking when they come in, what they want the patient to feel when they leave, that kind of stuff. And then I've spent a day in their practice where I watched that not happen. That's not what's happening here, and we need to talk about that. So, really narrowing that brand down to also not just the brand positioning, but the brand experience, right? And I'm not talking about logo and the color. I'm talking about truly who you show up as, your why behind what you're doing, and making sure you're sort of focused on getting your team to deliver that. And that's really hard to do. That's really hard to do. The larger your staff, the harder it is going to be able to manage that. I think it's interesting that you mentioned sort of AI passing things off, and this is something I've been looking into a lot, right? I'm working with one particular practice where we're beta testing a couple different things on getting AI to answer the phone, right? And because we've identified some inconsistencies, right, in that area, and it's the beta tests we've done have not worked. They're not great. It's too weird, it's too wonky, it's too glitchy, it asks for conversion at the wrong times, things like that. But the thing I know about AI is it's not going to be 5 years from now before that's perfected. It's going to be 5 months from now before that's perfected. It's all happening so fast. So if you're looking into AI things that don't work yet, just 3 years ago, we were doing training and onboarding videos here at Firm Media with AI, right? You just put a script in and you'd pick an avatar, and then that person would be speaking to you. And it was pretty weird. You could tell it was an avatar, right? But it was for onboarding, so who cares, right? So this is not marketing material that we're pushing out or anything like that. And then now, I mean, I could have that same AI avatar translate from English to Spanish, and then the lips move like they're speaking Spanish, and it looks pretty darn good. And we're only talking about maybe 18 to 24 months time period that made between that product and this new version of that product. So AI, we do I was talking about mixed media marketing a few minutes ago. We're running TV commercials on connected TV regionally for our clients. If I wanted to create a TV commercial before, I had to do whiteboarding. I had to whiteboard it. I had to script it. I had to fly people out. I had to edit. I had to post edit, all of that stuff. And now I can take a high-end photo shoot with a little bit of video and put those things together with a script, with an AI voiceover, and that commercial comes out absolutely flawless and super fast.
That is so interesting, and you're right. The acceleration has reached such a momentum that changes are happening very, very fast. And if people don't come on board on what the new technology is, then they're going to become obsolete faster and faster. With all this, I think that I love the way you put it, that the branding needs to also spell out the why.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to first ask it in a way, question in a way to figure out how we can actually help practices through education and this conversation that we are having. And it's like, what are the common mistakes or the one common mistake that you see a practice doing while they're trying to grow? So, they might hire you to create all this and to bring them first dates, but what is the common mistake that you see?
Well, the key phrase there is while they're trying to grow. I see practices make a lot of mistakes. We're at a lot of events where we know you and I both know a lot of very talented consultants. Some of the biggest names in the industry have been on my show, been on your show. There's no question about whether these people identify mistakes that are made. And they're being made all the time. The key to your question is while you're trying to grow. So this is a very common scenario for me, right? Local doctor, local plastic surgeon, regionally popular, right? Gets a lot of leads through his website, has a marketing agency, believes that the marketing agency is doing a really great job because they're busy all the time. Come to me and they're like, hey, something's a little off about this. They have this problem, whatever. Can you look at this for a minute? And then I start looking at it. It's not your marketing that's working. These are branded searches. You have just become super popular and your referral base is awesome and it's got you super busy. You haven't looked at your marketing. You're not measuring what you're doing. And now you want to add a junior partner. You want an associate or a junior partner or whatever you're going to call that person. I work pretty closely with an organization that does a really great job at this. A lot of times those relationships fail and they have a track record with a handful of our clients where the relationships have been successful because of their onboarding process. The relationships are not falling apart anymore. Some smart people are helping you place the right people. But then what you're thinking as a plastic surgeon is, I'm going to bring in this new plastic surgeon and I'm so busy that I'm just going to give them some of my work. And then you find out none of the people that are coming to see me want to go see them, right? Then you find out your marketing is not necessarily that great. And you realize now that you've brought in this junior partner and you haven't been measuring or looking at your marketing in a way that's going to sustain keeping that person busy. So now you got a person that's sitting around for about a year, right? So now we start having conversations about that. We start ramping up the marketing. We start, there was a day in the past where somebody would bring in an associate and I would go see the associate. And we're talking about 20 years ago now. I would go see an associate and meet with them in their office and be like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do on the website. And then I would go to the next office and meet with the senior partner. And his little team would say, okay, we want to make sure that I'm the first click and that person is a little farther down I want to make sure the business is still coming to me and then I get to decide what goes to them. And that's shifting. Right now, people are bringing people into their practice and they're like, I want to make them as busy as possible. I want to be able to hand them off. People are trying to create win-win situations, right? So with all that being said, we start the marketing and we start getting this sort of associate or junior partner busy, and it takes a long time because now we not only are spending more marketing dollars to get that person busy, now we're hyper focused on how the phone is being answered, whether we're converting leads, right? Sometimes the staff has to modulate because this key reason, right? What they were doing for the last 5 or 6 years was converting people that were technically referrals or word of mouth. Now you're having to talk to someone on the phone that sent 3 or 4 contact forms to 3 or 4 different people, and you have to sell. And selling is different than converting a lead. But they're not looking at their front office staff as a salesperson. They're not listening to phone calls to figure out whether they can make a 15 to 20% adjustment in just because one specific question keeps getting answered poorly, right? When you have a practice that's worth millions of dollars, 10, 15, 20% is a lot of extra revenue. So, yeah.
Yeah, and especially once they get to those numbers, that extra revenue it's adding a lot to the bottom line because they're already covering all the expenses, all those are paid for. So that extra top line revenue actually is worth even more than what they have been doing so far. I love that you mentioned the difference between an order taker in the front office when they're just booking an appointment for somebody that wants to book an appointment. Very different than an educator that will credential the practice, will credential the surgeon, will really do the sales process in a very empathetic way, in a very relationship based. But it takes work. It's not just bringing anybody and putting them in there. And I'm going to go back to your branding. You have to have that branding very clear before you hire those people and before you train them, because you have to really teach them the why. Why is it that we are all doing this? It's not just me as a surgeon, but we as a practice, we are doing this and believing it, and having that very clear is what is going to make them successful. That's what I've seen.
Sure. I think, things have become important over the years that didn't used to be important. When I first started doing this, it was volume of leads, right? I need to get more leads, and some of them are quality, some of them are not quality. Volume is the answer. And then we got into sort of, okay, rather than volume, let's focus on what we're doing with that specific person that called your office, right? Or are we exhausting or is it became lead exhaustion, right? Make sure you follow up over and over. You're texting, you're emailing, you're making sure that when they're ready to make the decision, they're going to come see you, right? And then it became speed to lead, right? Because people stopped just emailing 1 or 2 people. They started emailing 3 or 4 people from the website, and speed to lead became very important, right? Leads start to die after 15 or 20 minutes. So, yeah.
And is that what you think we are today? Speed to
I think we're someplace between speed to lead and brand position and awareness of your particular brand positioning and what differentiates your surgeon if you're talking about a patient coordinator or treatment coordinator.
Absolutely. Yeah, and therefore having a marketing company that doesn't only bring you leads but help you with branding is critical, because at the end of the day, those are 2 keys to success. And then as you are able to adopt all that and push it and train and educate your own team players, your team members, then you can also leverage a lot of technology today to actually get to the lead quickly with the right message, understanding what is it that they're asking, or what's the underlining. And I think that is, part of where AI is also playing a role.
Sure. I agree with that.
So then how do you normally do it? I mean, I'm sure that you get to work. No, I know that you get to work with a lot of practices around the country, and you need to help them create that brand storytelling, right? Mm-hmm. So what's your secret?
Well,
how do you get that done?
First of all, you can lead a horse to water, but you can make it drink, right? So yes. This is a very common scenario. Someone calls, we love your work. Your websites are beautiful. Your video and photography are incredible. And I'm very proud of the work we do every year. For the last 15 years, we've won some sort of award from the American Advertising Federation for our media development and things like that. 3 weeks ago, we won 2 gold awards for our website design. Beautiful work. Right now, I'm with this agency, and this is happening, and I have this poor customer service, and this is happening. And then I say, okay, well, first of all, I want to start with your branding. Then I want to build you a website. And then I want to shoot this media. And then we start discussing pricing, and they're like, well, what I'm used to paying right now is this. And I'm like, well, you just told me that what you're doing isn't working, right? And I had to pay people a little bit more money to get them to work here so that we could build something that works, right? So there's that, and a lot of times marketing is a little misunderstood, right? Because people have marketing and they're not sure it's working, and they don't necessarily know how to measure that. So they view marketing as an expense. Where yes, there's going to be some heavy lifting in the beginning, the website, the media development. That's you can go cheap on that if you want, but if you're going to spend a whole bunch of money each month for marketing to get people through the door, and this website's going to generate you millions of dollars in annual revenue, I really think that you should take the time to, if you're going to throw a party, you should make sure the salon is ready, right?
Absolutely.
So I think there's an investment. I think there's an expense there, and then I think if the marketing is being done right, it turns into an investment. This is very common. These are all the things I want to do for you, and I want to start with this branding workshop. which is a branding workshop that I built from scratch, working with some of the largest branding agencies in the country. I've done marketing for some very big brands that ended up selling eventually, and working with some of the best branding agencies in Los Angeles. So I got to sort of replicate their process. And I've even sent my final ask. I have to do a 2-hour to 4-hour workshop. And when I'm all done doing that 2 to 4 hour workshop, I've sent what I came up with to other brand strategists and said, hey, what do you think of this? If I gave you this, could you build a deck and an entire campaign around this for a practice? And the answer is always yes. What you came up with at the end is going to help me completely create the images, the brand, the messaging, all of that stuff from this. So I'm very, very proud of that thing. But more common than not, I give them all. And can we cut the branding piece? I'd rather just do the website and then start doing the marketing. Okay, now I'm doing exactly what all your competitors are doing, and I'm just writing about breast augmentation and sprinkling your name in there occasionally because I don't have any awareness of who you are, what differentiates you. And yes, I can ask some questions on the kickoff call, but there's no formal process where we create what I call like the brand Bible, right?
Love it.
There's ways to do this now that were not available to us before without AI. For instance, competitor analysis was subjective based on who was doing it. And it was also hit and miss because you had to go through everything by yourself, right? And sort of look at all of these different areas and decide how you feel about it and then document all that. Now I can ask you who your top 3 competitors are, take your domain names, their domain names, all of your reviews, all of your review sites that you're on. I have a whole bunch of prompts built where I throw this all into AI, and then I ask AI to give me an outsider's opinion of these 4 practices and compare and contrast their strengths and weaknesses. And then it gives me a document that's usually pretty spot on. I have to obviously garbage in, garbage out. I have to edit it, but that leverages, I mean, let's say hypothetically that you're in an area where there's 4 practices competing pretty aggressively for internet space, or 10 even. And the number 1 complaint for all of you is long wait times. Which happens, right? I'll get in there and I'll be like, oh, it's long wait time. And it's all of you, not just one of you. All of you have long wait times. Our brand message can hover around fast service, getting you your appointment when you need it, availability, really helping you to avoid long wait times, right? And then we work on systemization. This is where you take the brand and move it into the practice to where you can, maybe you got to add an extra day, right? And now we've opened up an extra day and we're sort of working on that, right? Or you add a step in the process where somebody else could see them first and speed up the process a little bit. But you can't just come up with a brand, you have to deliver on that brand. So if I say that Firm Media is bold and cutting edge, and then when you call me, I don't have anything bold or cutting edge to say, then I'm not bold or cutting edge. I just have a red logo that suggests that I could be bold.
I love it, man. I'm very passionate about this. I think that branding, understanding who you are, what you stand for, is so critical. Of course, at Symplast, we have our own brand and our own values, but I think that doesn't translate often, or it doesn't get picked up and copied by surgeons. And clearly, you're doing a great job with that. And it is a huge investment that they have to do. Not just money. It's all about dedicating the resources themselves, their practice, to go through this process. And I love that you're using technology to augment and speed up much of the research that needs to be done. But that research is not going to create the brand. That research is going to show where they are and where there are some opportunities, like the example that you were using. But who they are, they need to figure that out. Mm-hmm. And because then they have to be loyal to that branding.
Sure. I can tell just by knowing a client. I mean, at the beginning of the podcast, you referred to me as the Chief Strategy Officer at Firm Media. You know that I'm the founder, and for a long time I was the CEO. And a couple years ago, I realized this thing Firm Media was created because of the way that I think about and see marketing. And as it started to grow, the people that I was passing the baton to were less interested in strategy, less interested in brand positioning, that kind of stuff, right? And so I had finally hired someone who is making an excellent CEO here. And frankly, he's at some degrees better than I was at it, right? I'm a visionary. He dots I's and crosses T's. And I took that title and passed that baton because I started meeting with each and every one of our clients. And I can tell you right out of the gate, I'm about to get on a brand strategy call with a client, and I will say, this call is going to be awesome because that guy is authentic, he knows himself, and he knows how to communicate. So this is going to be awesome. And then I'll go to another one where I start asking questions, and the answers are things like, I don't know, I'm just a plastic, I just do plastic surgery. And it's very hard to figure out how to differentiate them because they don't see themselves as different. Sometimes they don't bring sort of their own personal insight to the table. It doesn't mean they're not good surgeons. They're just not bringing it, right?
No, I hear you. And I think it has to do a lot with their trainings, right? Like at the end of the day, they go to school to be an amazing plastic surgeon. And then the personality when it comes to how to market basically their services and their business is not something that necessarily they went to school for. And if they don't get good advice over the years, and one of the things that I always say is in this industry, being that it's very profitable for surgeons that are really good and that started a while ago, they corner the market, and the reputation is their brand, like you were saying. Even though I shouldn't say brand, but their reputation is what brings them business.
Mm-hmm.
Then their brand is not for themselves. It's not very well known. It's just I'm a very good plastic surgeon that I like X, Y, or Z. But then the why and whatnot is what it takes a little more to extract, I believe.
Well, sure. Also, plastic surgery and med spas are on the rise. More and more people are okay with going that route now, or they actually, what I'm seeing is, especially with the introduction of GLP-1s into the industry, people are now seeing a pathway, right? Like you start on GLP-1s, you lose a little weight, then there's maybe some diet stuff you got to do to get down to where you want to be, and then there's some areas that you just can't get the love handles out or whatever. So now plastic surgery is part of your overall health goals and weight loss journey, right? Where before it was just, I'm going in to get this thing. And what I'm seeing happen, it's just, I can't guarantee this is what's happening, but logically to me, this makes sense that as it becomes more and more accepted, ubiquitous, it becomes more popular on social media. The Kardashians probably helped start that wave.
Mm-hmm.
So there used to be a different kind of reverence for a plastic surgeon because it was kind of elusive, right? And now it's being exposed everywhere. Everybody's shooting videos of them in the surgery center and answering questions, and they're being humanized. And because they're being humanized, that requires a different level of authenticity, right? Where there used to be like an attraction to it. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist still. I'm saying, going to go back to what I said earlier, a new generation of people, buyers and consumers, are coming into the market, and these people are less impressed with sort of how big an office is or whether you have 3 offices and very special parts of the world. I'm not saying that doesn't attract people either, but there is a sort of a consumer coming along that is more interested in who you are, what you do, and what you stand for, and what are my results going to be.
That's exactly right. So patient safety, of course, at the top. Then results, right? The results that the patient is hoping for. And expectations from a plastic surgeon is critical because certainly social media and all the digital enhancement can be a challenge on setting those right expectations. But then once you get that out of the way, connection with the plastic surgeon or with the provider becomes a lot more important than it used to be, because at least it's my belief, and that's the conversation that I want to have with you. My belief is that there's so much offer out there that then unless you as a consumer, you want to be that transactional, or I'm going to do this injectable, you go in, whoever does it, doesn't matter, it will be fine. No, I'm in a relationship with my esthetician or with my doctor or with my elective medicine provider.
Yes.
And that is, I think, where we see the most successful practices, because that relationship, it doesn't mean that they're going to come back every month or every 6 months or every year, but when they come back, they come back.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of that relationship. And even more important, those are the ones that become advocates for the practice and therefore will refer other patients. And word of mouth, we all know that is the best lead source in this industry.
100%. 100%. I always say, um, this is kind of loosely how I frame it, right? If your practice, 60% of your business should be coming from referrals. And a lot of people can sustain running an entire career off of that 60%, right? Or those referrals. But that isn't where the growth comes from, right? The growth comes from, my belief is 60% should come from your referrals. If you're doing a good job, then you're going to turn a percentage of those referrals into raving fans and they're going to become referrals again. I have practices I've been working with for 20 years. And they are, one of the common things they say to me is, well, I used to, when I first started, everybody was younger. And then everybody got older with me and they're referring their friends and so on and so forth. So I do different work now because my patient base got a little older, right?
Absolutely.
But 40% of the growth should come from marketing. And then, so now you're looking at, okay, I'm spending this money on marketing and my marketing consultant or my marketing agency is delivering these leads to me. Once I deliver the leads to you, now you have the opportunity to turn those people into raving fans. And now that 40% becomes part of that 60%. This is how the practice goes.
Well, Chris, I love this. You have been providing a lot of insights and on, especially on the strategy side, and clearly that's where your passion is. But I also know that you're helping a lot of your practices actually implement that. How do we go from strategy, the branding, and how a great patient journey looks like? Why a practice is so committed to their patients and their experience. But then you actually have to run a practice. And that certainly is not on strategy, but it's on systems and policies and procedures, right? So tell me how different tools or different practices that you have implemented with your clients in order to systematize this.
So obviously you have to be able, systems and protocols. Consider myself a systems thinker. I mean, Firm Media was probably 6 months old when I walked into the office and it was just 3 of us in the office. And we had graduated from my kitchen table to a little tiny office and we were sitting in that office. I walked in and one of the guys says to me, "Hey, Dr. So-and-so called and he's really mad about the content that was sent." I said, "Okay." Whatever the reason was. I said, "Okay, who wrote the content?" And he said, "Yeah, but he wants you to call him right now." And I said, "Who wrote the content?" And he needs you to call him right now. And I said, "Look, I will be able to handle this and I'll have this conversation because this won't happen on my watch. But I want to know who wrote the content and I want to know what happened and I want to make sure this never happens again so that once I get on the call with the doctor, I can guarantee them that this will never happen again." Right? So my brain is just automatically, if I got to do this thing over and over, then what system do I have to put in place to make sure it's repeatable? The whole McDonald's sort of theory, right? Having a strategy for systems and protocols is one thing. Finding out that you may or may not be an implementer is a whole nother thing. So is the surgeon strategy like a systems and protocols thinker? May not be. If he or she's not, then probably need a good consultant. And you and I both know a couple people that will come in and not just give your team ideas, but then stick around and make sure through huddles and things like that monthly that those things are actually taking place till it becomes a habit, right? Also, you might not be able to come up with the systems and protocols. 2, you might not be able to implement them, right? It's always been a thing for me because I'm a big picture thinker. I can write down systems and protocols all day. It's going back to make sure, inspecting what I suspect, that I don't always get to, which made probably Nathan a better CEO than I will be. So I'm excited to see that unfold. On the other end, you spend all of this money, time, and energy on marketing, and then most EMRs don't play well with others. That they're not open. Your marketing isn't necessarily connected to it in a way where you can see lead attribution, where the leads came from, whether they converted or not. Did we call them back? How many times did we call them? Did we text them? So on and so forth. Right. I know that you and I, Firm Media, and your team have been in talks with several of our clients about moving over to Symplast because it is open and we will be able to connect our marketing efforts to what you're doing. I think there's a couple other situations out there where people are starting to try that, but I also think the ones that are sort of closed and not interested in being open to that are going to fade away. You know, I recently had a situation with a client where we wanted to connect to the EMR so that we could send out, we have a product called Reputation Nest. I want to be able to send out review reminders and text messages. And not only did they want to charge me a lot of money for the integration, they also wanted to charge the client monthly for the integration. And while they were in there, they made some other realization that something else needed to be charged for that was going to be $15,000 a year. So the client calls me and he's obviously upset, right? This is a lot of extra money I have to spend for me to be able to get reviews. So naturally, I'm now hesitant to want to integrate with that platform. And two, the first question he asked me was, who else is everybody using? And I said, well, I have a couple clients that are trying this thing, and I'm really excited to watch that unfold. So I think that I have practices where we're spending, I don't know, $6,000 to $10,000 a month on PPC. And then I get on the phone with them, and Firm Media doesn't do an analytics review. We do what we call a JSR, a joint strategy review. So once a quarter, our team gets together with your team to figure out what's working, what needs to be adjusted, and we strategize together. And I was on a call recently where we're spending X amount of dollars on PPC and local service ads. And I realized that I don't have visibility on 40% of the leads. Now, I'm not saying that whoever's in the office answering the phone or making the calls back isn't fielding the leads. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm saying I refuse to do your marketing if I don't have visibility on where 40% of the leads are going. And it's not because the person didn't want to do the work. It's that to use this system that does not integrate with the EMR meant I have to use this system to fill the lead. Then I have to move it over to this system manually. And all of us know that anything that you have to do manually, there's a massive margin for error, especially when the people answering the phone are as busy as they are in your practice. So that integration needs to take place. And like I said, you're one of the few people that are paying attention to that. So I'm excited to watch that unfold.
Absolutely. That is really why we invested so much in the last 2 years to bring this to market, where now we can deal with patients that are interested in the service all the way to dealing with the medical aspect of delivering the service, and then actually bringing them back, which is also as important for marketing engine, right? We speak about CRM a lot, but it's really a marketing and nurturing system that will create automation and based on data. And if that data is very well connected between that engine and the EHR and PM, then you can untap huge revenue stream that is to bring patients back and to upsell and cross-sell based on their, from demographics to buying patterns and where they are in life.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly is to systematize that practice, ensure that they deliver a consistent patient experience that goes in accordance to that branding that you were talking about. So I think that we have entered a new era when it comes to patient care, and especially for elective medicine, that people are paying a lot more attention to that, to understanding that it's all about connections. These are emotional 100%. Connections. This is not a transactional type of service, and therefore they are paying a lot more attention to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's medical care is kind of a mess. And I can't tell you how many times I've had something somewhat serious, not a million times, but multiple times where I've had something serious enough for me to be concerned about it, where I'm at the doctor and I feel something's off and I have to advocate for myself. And honestly, if you're not helping me understand what I don't know which questions to ask. I need to be told what I don't know. I don't know what I don't know, right? And if I get the sense that I'm sort of not being told that, then all of a sudden this space doesn't feel safe.
Absolutely.
And people are now, I got a primary care doctor recently switched, and he did some things right away that no other doctor had done for me in a very long time. And when I saw him this week face to face, I said to him, I want you to know that I really appreciate the fact that I do not feel like I have to advocate for myself. Doesn't mean I won't, but I now only look around for the people that are sort of on my side or in my corner.
Yep. Makes sense. So wrapping it up, I want to pick your brain. Where do you get inspiration from when it comes to strategy? How do you get inspired to bring back to this industry?
Well, it's the number one thing I love, the thing I'm most passionate about. One, if you do quality work, money just shows up. You don't have to try to make money.
Absolutely.
You provide value, and then money shows up. It's a little overgeneralized, but you get it, right? Like you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about how you're going to get money. If you provide value, then there's opportunities that are going to show up. It was probably 15 years ago, and I told you I have a nonprofit. I started the nonprofit, and we did our first Thanksgiving event. And I started for media in June of 2008. The market crashed in October, so a lot of people were broke. I started this nonprofit where we hosted a Thanksgiving meal in a park, and 2,500 people showed up to eat at that event. Dignitaries came out. I was watching live entertainment and vendors doing flu shots and haircuts and all that stuff going on at this event. I was standing on the stage, and I was looking out at all the people, and I thought to myself, and I've stood in front of a sea of people in the music business, right? But I was just working with the band that was on the bill or whatever, right? And so I was standing there, and I thought to myself, this started as an idea in my head. And at that moment, I realized that my focus, my sole focus in life, is to turn my thoughts into things. And over the years, I just realized that when I start talking to you about marketing and your practice, I focus on specialty medical, so not just aesthetics. I work with oral surgeons who are trying to get people in for full mouth restoration, and those are big ticket items. If I, through asking you specific branding questions and marketing wants and needs, can figure out what your top line revenue drivers are, figure out what your financial goals are, and then come up with strategies that tie myself to you achieving your financial goals, our relationship lasts a very long time. It lasts a very long time because now I'm providing value, right? You didn't hire me so that you could have a beautiful website. You hired me so you could grow your practice. And so in that space, when I start realizing that my thoughts are becoming things, and strategy is, it's birthed in my brain. I get super excited about it. I'm not going to do it for free, but I might because it's so fun.
I love it. And you know, when you're passionate about it, it's not only that it's not work anymore, but also it makes you this good because you don't stop. You just keep looking at areas where to improve and where that strategy ideas and inspiration will come from, and then you get to have a team that actually can implement and take that and make it a fruition.
It's the sole reason I stepped away from the CEO role here at Firm Media, is because I realized what I was providing was strategy, and I was turning our clients back into raving fans, and that was really fun and exciting for me. So
awesome. Well, let's wrap it up. What do you think our listeners will get from this from this conversation? Like, what do you think it would be their immediate actions based on this conversation?
I hope that what they take away from this is that things are changing. You as a practice owner are going to have to change with it. There's no way to organize your staff and build systems and protocols unless you get involved. So if you think you're going to hire a consultant and then have them work with your team while you go do something else, that's not going to work. So you have to be willing to roll up your sleeves if you want to. The higher the ladder you climb, the more attention to detail that I think you need to pay in some areas, but especially with growth of your practice. So that the other takeaway I think would be, you know, I like to say marketing is testing. So make sure you have a budget for testing. And if you're not measuring, don't do it.
If you don't measure, you don't know. Yep.
Yeah.
Eliminating variables as you measure and as you test, and that will make you successful. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, you know how many phone calls I get with that? Not measuring is the birthplace of, I was slow today, so I Googled myself and I don't show up for this phrase. That's not measuring. That's not
No, no.
marketing. That's I hope that, and then branding, really, right? I hope that that lands with people, that it's time to start differentiating yourself and making sure that you're working with people that have the capacity to do that. And we're not the only agency that can do that, but it's only a few now.
Yeah, yeah. That is a truly a holistic approach to marketing. So, yeah, love it. Thank you, Chris. I really enjoy the conversation. Thank you for your time. You're very generous. For our listeners who want to learn more about Firm Media and the work that Chris and his team are doing, please visit firm-media.com. And if anything in this conversation resonated, please follow up, comment, contact us. Certainly, we can put you in touch with Chris as well. And you can visit symplast.com/CRM, where you can see how we can help you operationalize many of the things that we have been discussing today. Again, Chris, thank you so much.
I thoroughly
Have a good
enjoyed
day.
it. Thank you so much. I always enjoy talking to you, whether it's digitally or in person. I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.